Good morning. I'd like to make a quick video on basically summarizing what has happened last week and what I'm expecting in the week ahead. Let's start off with the dollar index as we do. Starting off with the monthly chart, we have price sinking into this buy-side imbalance that we highlighted. We had price also going below the consequent encroachment, even though it temporarily acted as support on a lower time frame for higher prices. But we have price now heading over to this bullish order block. So if we could look at the high time frame as if it's a 5 minutes chart, we can see price reacting off of this BC and displaced higher, confirming a change in the state of delivery, therefore making this last down close candle before the expansion to the upside to become a bullish order block. So basically pay attention to this white line. That becomes where you would consider the bullish order block from, right? The wick to body, because this candlestick has a long wick and not a long body. Has a long wick, not a long body, so we can't consider this wick to body to be a bullish order block. So we might still use this area as support for higher prices. I'm paying attention to that, and I'm also paying attention to this week in particular, which is the last week of the month, and we have a possibility of price reacting off of this line out of the opening price of this candle, which is exactly 102.921. so we have the possibility of price tagging this opening price and rejecting fiercely to the upside, so that we don't have a candle closure below this buy side imbalance. So what I'm trying to say is that we might have in this last week, price could do something like this and quickly come back here before the monthly candle closes. And if that happens, that's going to be an indication to me that we may still be looking for higher prices on the dollar, and this was just a way to get rid of everybody that has been trailing their stop losses from this point. So I'm keeping an eye out on that. I'm watching to see how this monthly candle closes, and I'm watching to see how we react off of this bullish order block level. So that's what I have on the monthly time frame. Going down to the weekly time frame, we get to see price reject off of here. I believe this was before around NFP. We got a push down in price, creating basically a change in the state of delivery, using this candle as a bearish order block, and then price traded higher the next week into this area, and then continue rejecting lower the previous 2 weeks. And then the next week that followed after that, we had another bearish printout in price. So next week, going into next week, I have this low, this sell side liquidity as my target, because if you remembered, this sell side liquidity is actually around where this bullish order block is. It's slightly above this level, but it's basically the same thing. So I'm watching this sell side liquidity as my target for the week ahead. So let's actually highlight that sell side, and going down to the daily chart, it gets refined even better. I don't know if you all remembered my previous video where I mentioned that I'm watching these 3 candles, these 3 bearish candles here, and I'm watching to see how much we respect it as an order block, because inside of it we have the 50% area, which is the main threshold of it, this light blue line, and we also have this fair value gap in the form of a buy side imbalance. So I was looking to see if price was gonna use it to support and push higher, or if we were going to use it as resistance in this case, where we closed below the buy side imbalance and now officially has made this to become an inversion fair value gap. So price traded below, closed below it twice. We came back, traded higher into it, and we can see how the bodies of each candle on the daily time frame could not even trade above the consequent encroachment, the 50% mark, which is this dotted line. We couldn't even trade and close above the consequent encroachment. Yes, we did trade higher above the inversion, but we only traded higher to come into this bearish order block. We traded higher to come into this bearish order block, and also to make this tiny fair value gap to be efficient. We have a tiny CB there in the form of a fair value gap in the form of a sell side imbalance right there. So we traded higher into it, and we had this order block, the last bullish candles. But the point is that the bodies of these candles did not close above the inversion fair value gap. So going into next week, my targets are very easy on the dollar index, and I'll be surprised if we don't hit them, because I am paying attention to this sell side liquidity that we created last week or Tuesday, and then going through that, we have this sell side liquidity here at 102.936. So these are my two targets on the dollar index going into next week. The next one that I have in mind that I need to cover. So actually, while we're here, let's go back again to the monthly time frame, and then let's plot out this bullish order block. Let's label that. Bullish order block, and then go back down to the daily time frame. So I don't know if you notice, the bullish order block is literally right below this sell side liquidity. So we have the possibility of us trading below this sell side and then tapping into this daily inversion fair value gap to then push to the upside. So I'm looking at the possibility of us using this area as support for higher prices. I'm not going to be the one trying to catch the bottom or the tops of these markets, but I'll be just riding the order flow of what they give us. Also, one more thing I do need to mention while we're here is that we may get the high of the week probably on a Monday. So in the next few hours, we may get the high of the week printed on the dollar index to clear these two sell side liquidities. So on the 4-hour chart, we have this fair value gap here in the form of a sell side imbalance. I'll be paying attention to that. We also have this inversion fair value gap on this side. So the fact that we closed below this BC means that we could use it as support, as resistance, for lower prices. So we could get price print on Sunday and Monday into this area, and then fall off, or just fall off from here. So two possibilities, something like this or something like this, into the sell side imbalance that we have here before pushing lower. But this is what I'm looking for going into next week. Let's move on to euro and pound. Starting off with euro on the monthly time frame, we can see that we had this buy side imbalance as our main target for basically the last quarter of the year, and we have not traded into it. We actually left it and pushed higher from here. But one thing else I did notice is that we traded above the true year opening price. Of course, if you need to know true sessions opening, true year opening, true month opening, and all those true opening prices, you have to go check out days content. You would have to just search days quarterly theory on YouTube, and you should be able to find this content. If not on YouTube, then you can find it definitely on Twitter. So yeah, just check out these quarterly theories so that the true openings would make sense. I'm not going to re-explain it because I've already explained it on previous videos, but moving on. So monthly chart, we have this wave price trading about the 2-year opening right now, and basically anything above the true openings should be any PD array that can be found above this should be used to sell this asset class, and everything below should be used to buy. So that's why I wanted to see us trade down into this buy side imbalance, which is a high time frame PD array that we could use to take it back up, but we didn't do that. So we basically just stay shy away from it. And the next thing is, compared to the dollar index, we have already traded into the order block, the bearish order block in this case, for EURUSD, because euro is stronger, way stronger than the pound right now. So we've already traded into this bearish order block as compared to the dollar index, which is why I'm going to be personally not paying attention to EURUSD as a currency pair or GBPUSD as a currency pair, and I would rather just pay attention to the dollar as a whole and use these as my entries. So I would not really pay much attention to what's going on euro or what's going on pound, but I'll be just looking to see to use this as possible entries for the other ones. So let's go down now to the weekly time frame. We have the same idea. We traded into this volume imbalance some months ago, traded below into discount, expecting this higher time frame PD array to be met before a continuation to the upside. So now that we've gotten the continuation to the upside, what would be my next target or draw on liquidity? The first I'm seeing already here is this inversion fair value gap. So I'm looking at this fair value gap as a whole. I would have personally highlighted this CB here on top, on the higher portion of this inversion, but personally, well, right now I'll just be paying attention to the entire thing because it encapsulates the BC on this side and the tiny CB on this side as somewhat of a balanced price range, if you want to call it that. So let's label this as our inversion. So this is what I'm looking at as my draw on liquidity on euro. We actually, let me set an alert on that to let me know when we get there. And I don't have much else to say on this time frame, but everything I want on the dollar should be flipped over on euro and pound, on EURUSD. But I wanted to share something interesting about my analysis last week on euro. If for those that actually watched it on the YouTube channel, it should be in the last few videos. I mentioned that on the daily chart, I wanted to see us react from this order block, and you can see I set an alert on it. Well, this area, this bullish order block, I wanted to see us react from this bullish order block and push higher from here. And we can notice how price didn't even want to close at this line. It basically spiked through this and rejected aggressively. The next one I wanted to point out was on the 4-hour time frame. I did cover this buy side imbalance that I wanted. I covered how there was a classic 2022 model, a sweeping liquidity down here, basically a turtle soup on Friday, and then we got a market structure shift at this point, making this to be a breaker, and we have a fair value gap there. So this was my entry for EURUSD, with this being my validation point. And we can see our price traded deep into it, but immediately rejected after that and struggled to close below this buy side imbalance. So seeing these signatures in price was actually really interesting, and I actually executed on this as my first entry. But when price traded higher into this imbalance here, this fair value gap here in the form of a sell side imbalance, and traded back below, I knew this was just smart money wanting to accumulate more orders. So we had this tiny inversion fair value gap here, a CB right there. And we had price obviously trading back into this BC. So at this point, I put my stop loss no longer at that low. I put it at this low. And when price came back into this, I added another position. And we can see how beautifully price traded higher. Of course, we didn't clear the buy side liquidity. Well, we cleared this buy side liquidity before trading into this area on Wednesday. I didn't want to, if on my previous review video, I didn't want to see us trade into this buy side. That was the only difference. I didn't want us to trade this into this buy side. I wanted us to trade into this first before reaching that buy side. But now that we did already, I still looked at this as a possibility, but with my lot size being lowered, my risk being reduced, obviously, because we've already met the higher time frame targets. So now that we have this inversion fair value gap that we highlighted on the weekly chart as our next target, I am again not looking for a deep retracement back into the range for price to keep shooting higher. I am not sure what this is supposed to be. Let me confirm quickly on a higher time frame. I'm not really sure what that was, but paying attention to the 4-hour time frame, I am looking for a possibility of us using this as a bullish order block. Using this kind of as a bullish order block, but actually let's do it right. Okay, before I do continue, my first entry of course is this fair value gap, this BC right here. So if price trades lower into this because of the strength of euro, of course pound specifically was slightly stronger than euro last week alone. Of course, on a higher time frame, we have the euro shooting higher faster than the pound is, but for last week pound was actually stronger than euro. In any case, I'm looking for a possibility for us to trade into this and immediately shoot up from there. So I don't want a deep retracement. I want something like this going into next week. We also have this order block. Let's take the body there, and we can see price potentially coming into this area. I'm trying to be as precise as possible on how to use a big bodied bullish order block. So we have 1.09 1224, 1.09124 as the main threshold of that. So we can then edit that here, 1.09124. Perfect. So we have this as our bullish order block on the 4-hour time frame going into next week. So let's label that and set an alert as well. I should also do the same for the 4-hour time frame, even though it's not, should not be that hard to spot. So going down on a lower time frame, we have essentially the same idea. Could trade into this and spike higher from there, because we notice we've been supporting bullish PDRAs like this massive imbalance. We traded into it and shot up. So here the low of the week might be made really early if we're going to only target this as our main target of the week. If we of course dig deeper, that's fine, but right now I'm only looking for the 1.09733 level, the inversion fair value gap that we highlighted from a higher time frame. So yeah, this is what I'm looking for next week. My validation point for this idea would be this swing low right here on Thursday, when we came back to retest and support from that 4-hour fair value gap. When we came back to it and spiked higher, continuing higher, this would be my invalidation point for it. So yeah, these are my entries for euro going into next week. For pound, GBPUSD, you'll notice exactly what I mean when I say that the pound has been stronger last week But for now, let's start off with the monthly chart. Monthly chart, just like the dollar index, we haven't really come to the bearish order block that we have here. Let's make that as visible as possible. So here we have a monthly bearish order block. Let's put that to the right, bottom 10, and set an alert on it. So we have a monthly bearish order block there, and could possibly support lower prices. As the same idea that I have on euro, we also have this fair value gap. I mean, not on euro, on the dollar index. We have this fair value gap in the form of a sell side imbalance that could possibly see, we could possibly see price closing inside of it by the end of the month, which is end of this week. So I'm paying real close attention to these areas on a higher time frame, because they're critical to know where price could go next. Jumping down to the weekly time frame, we can see price has been supporting high. The chart has been pushing higher and higher. We even got a closure here above this weekly tiny fair value gap in the form of a sell side imbalance. So we got a closure above it, and here as well last week. So of course we've been pushing higher and higher. Therefore my drawn liquidity now becomes this monthly order block. So I'm looking to see if we could trade here. I don't know if we'll use it to support lower prices, but I'll be targeting that as my target going into next week. And I see that it's also close to this buy side liquidity, the swing high here. So we could possibly trade higher to that point, but I'm only looking at this level, this 1.26974 for now. Let's delete this. So we have last week's price action making the low of the week on Wednesday into this imbalance here, and of course we have an order block on the right of it. I haven't measured this order block to see if it respected the mean threshold or not, but I know that we have the imbalance sitting there, the daily one that we created on Monday. Then of course price shot higher from there. So this was the price action we had from Sunday's opening price, which from here all the way till Wednesday. So price only really became clean I guess only after Wednesday, I guess only on Friday, because that was the only time, or Thursday here, we see that we dipped into this fair value gap, as well as Friday making the low of the day inside of this BC, and then price just shot higher from there. So the price action was not really the cleanest last week, of course, because of the bank holidays we had, I think Thanksgiving as well, and all those lack of liquidity and of course lack of volume in the market. So yeah, this was very much expected for me last week. The pound being the stronger of the two, and me not knowing whether it's going to be the weaker next week or not, I'll be looking at certain areas as my entries. First one that I'm looking at is the fair value gap, just like on euro. So we have our BC. The next one I'm looking at is this weekly inversion fair value gap, because this was once a weekly sell side imbalance which we have violated. So now this becomes an inversion fair value gap. So going back to the 4-hour time frame, I'm looking for this possibility, us trading from here into the monthly target, into the monthly order block target, or us trading from going this deep into the inversion fair value gap for higher prices, because we also have a bullish order block residing on the right of it. So, and also this tiny fair value gap. So I'm looking at these two possibilities, but I'm looking for higher prices on the pound going into next week. My invalidation point for this idea would be this swing low here, similar to the euro. We had a swing low that retested into this fair value gap, then higher. So that would be my invalidation point for GBPUSD going into next week. Finally, we have the indices. Well, of course, I also covered gold, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. I did cover gold last week as well, and my idea for bullish prices, start catching it all the way from this low right here, targeting these highs. But I'm not gonna cover that in this video. I'll link it in the description, what I was looking for on gold and how it's been playing out so far. So going to the indices, we have E-mini S&P 500, which I don't have much of an update. I'm probably just gonna link the previous video in this one, because last week we essentially chopped around. We did trade higher, but we just chopped around. I mentioned how I was looking for lower prices. I was looking to see if we could tap into this massive imbalance here. It doesn't need to do it, but I was looking for a retracement into this area before we could continue higher and essentially make the all-time high on NASDAQ and possibly ES. So looking at the 4-hour chart, we can basically see that not much happened. Monday we opened and traded higher here. Yeah, we didn't really do much, and here we spiked higher, taking out this buy side liquidity. I assumed we were going to do a quick turtle swoop to trade lower and break these lows, this consolidation that we've been building up for so long. So I wanted to see if we could trade lower into this, but again, we are not getting that, so I don't know what to expect anymore. But that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see if we could trade lower into this before continuing higher. These are my internal targets for S&P 500, but at this point I don't really know what it's gonna give us. If the idea is still valid, we would need a sharp displacement lower for us to look for a pullback and re-entry, which again is what I thought we were gonna get here on Wednesday when we quickly swept the liquidity, this buy side liquidity, so fast and displaced lower. I thought we were gonna get that, but we didn't get it. On a 30-minute chart, we can see how it looks. We had a quick Judas swing when the news came out and when the markets opened, and yeah, when price traded lower here, I thought we were gonna get a closure below, but we didn't even do that either. So I'm still looking for lower prices temporarily. Of course, longer term, I said I'm bullish on the indices, and I'm still bullish on the indices until we take out the all-time high on NASDAQ. So speaking of NASDAQ, similar price action last week. Took out this buy side liquidity, tapped into this volume imbalance from a higher time frame. This was a new day opening gap. Actually, I remember when this was formed, new day opening gap. We tapped into it on Wednesday, and I thought that was gonna push price lower finally into this open range gap, which is also a massive imbalance on a higher time frame. So I was looking to see if we could just fill this up a bit. We didn't actually have to fill it up, but just to touch and tap into it before we continue going higher. Even now, if I'm bullish, I'm not gonna want to buy these markets from this chop. I would like to see a discount for me to take it back up, but right now I don't really see any updates. I don't see any changes. We're basically where we were last week. For our chart, same idea. I wanted to see us trade into this before continuing higher, because I believe this was where the markets, I think this was a real trading hour RTH high there. It's this low. So I wanted to see us trade into this before continuing higher from here. I don't have much else to add on the NASDAQ, and I'm still looking for lower prices. My conclusion, I'm still looking to see if we could trade lower into this before we continue higher. That's my idea. That's my only idea on NASDAQ. I'm looking for a discount to take it up. In any case, that's all I have for now. Good luck and good trading.